alone. It is 8:37 this morning, and I was busy doing devotions with time with the Lord by myself before I came on devotion. So it was very nice, and this morning it's raining, it's cold, it's chilly. I wish everybody was home, that way we could just cuddle, you know. All right. So this morning we're gonna jump back into politics for people who hate politics. So we're gonna continue the plan that we were on yesterday, and yeah, let's jump into it. Okay. First off, I've never had a problem telling anyone my version of the truth. Both of my parents are outspoken in their beliefs, and they raised me to be the same. My teenage years were predictably tumultuous, tumultuous. Anyways, given that my truths differed so much from theirs, sometimes our differences got out of control, and my mom would say something mean. When she did, she rarely apologized and often doubled down. Honey, she'd say, the truth hurts, deal with it. I internalized her words and gave myself license to say whatever I wanted, hurting people and expected them to thank me for setting them straight. Now, this is the person that wrote the devotion. They're talking about themselves, okay? And their life. This is their devotion. So, for the record, my mom and I no longer talk or think this way. Both of us have since matured in age as well as faith. As Christians, we don't get simply divine love as truth and call it a day. The way we express God's truth is as important as what we say. So, expressing hard truths lovingly is the biggest challenge we all face, and nowhere in the more challenging than in today's political environment. So when we choose to follow Jesus and submit our wills to him, the Holy Spirit tamed our tongues and checked our pride. We did not, however, give up on truth telling. If anything, God made us more emboldened to speak the truth. So the difference is that now we do so from a position of love. So to reflect on today's devotion from this person is, how loving are you when speaking hard truths, and how can you improve? So for me, I totally get what this person is going through in their devotion. My parents are my dad is very, he can be very outspoken. My mom is more not shied away. She can speak her mind, but she's very observant before she speaks her mind. Let's be real. But my mom always apologized if she felt like, hi, aloha, Christopher. My mom always felt the need to apologize when she said something to me that wasn't appropriate, which was very rare because we're very close in age. We're like 15 years apart from each other. So I mean, for the most part, we were kind of like sisters more than mom and daughter. Um, but like for my dad never really apologized for anything or any wrong that he's done in the past, or like things that he would say that could be very hurtful. He didn't really apologize, you know. But everything was pretty much like we had to deal with our own actions, or if you had troubles, you deal with it. And so I've always felt like I always was very independent. So in my life, if somebody said that, oh, I can't do it because of my parents and all the things that I lived through in my past, I was always the one to say, well, you know what, you can get over it. Like, because it was so easy, not easy for me to get over, but because I got over it, I expected that other people was able to do the same. And what it's saying is that the Lord is saying is that we're not different. We're not the same. And for others, hi, good morning. And for others, um when speaking the truth, it may not be easy flowing to them more than it was for me, right? And it just takes improving and a different mindset. And when you choose to follow and submit to the Lord, we also submit to change our way, or the things that come off of our tongues, right? We check our pride at the door. We don't give up easily on the truth telling, right? We tell the truth. And the reason why behind that is that the Lord shaped us to be able to tell the truth. But nowadays, it is really hard to speak of the truth. So when we talk to our parents, we make up things, we think about all these things to say versus just telling the truth and avoid all those dramas and the lies and all those sinister things that we're telling them versus what we should just come out and tell them. It's because we don't want to be on the bad side, or we don't want to hurt their feelings. But sometimes it is just easier to just speak the truth, right? So how loving are you when you speak hard truths, and how can you improve from that? So from this devotions, we looked into scriptures, Ephesians 4:14, and what that says is that then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth, right? And that's what I just mentioned, right? We come up with all these things, we fester up with all these lies so that they sound like the truth. Instead of just being mature about it, just speak the truth. Not just with parents, but with everything that you do in life, right? Just tell the truth, is what the Lord is saying. So Colossians 4:6 says, let your conversations be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. Meaning, don't be bossy, like, oh, what you said, da, da, da. You know, like how like you're, when people say, oh, do you have a problem? And you're kindly saying, no, I don't have a problem. What are you talking about? Because you're moving like this, right? And it's funny because my papa will always find that we're being cocky, because when we talk, we move our head like, what? Like, what do you want? Or we make those facial expressions. And what the Lord is saying is that let your conversations be gracious and attractive. Like, that is not attractive. Like, this is not attractive. So that way, people are not taking you out of context, if that makes sense, right? Basically, you'll say, okay, wait, what? Sorry, excuse me, what did you say? You know? So he's just saying to just should change that way. So Proverbs 29:11 says, fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. In one point in my life, I was a fool because I always vented my anger when it came to people that didn't want to hear me out, or just felt like they were better than everyone and anyone. But the wise would quietly hold it back, and my husband will always hold it back until it's actually really necessary. For me, I was like an atomic bomb. It would just be like boom, and I'm done. Okay, right now we're at 8 minutes. Let's go ahead and continue on. So social scientists have discovered that one way that divisive mentalities emerge is through our tendencies to apply in group bias. That is preferential treatment to those who constitute in our group or those who are like us. Who we allow in our in group is influenced by our upbringing and environment. So, where we were born, what our parents believe, and the colors of our skin, etc. However, in this group, biases create blind spots that can limit our ability to see the whole truth. You see, whoever we're raised around, or we place ourselves in these groups, we're group biased. Like, have you ever been to I don't know, like you're in a crowd, right? Or you're sitting down in a class, and you pick up all these people that have similarities to you, and you constitute yourself with people who are like you. And that's what the Lord is saying, when we have a tendency to apply ourselves in a group bias treatment. Okay. And it's influenced by how we upbring ourselves or in the environment we're in. So our political blind spots stem from what a group of Princeton researchers refer to as our inability to recognize the impact of our biases and limitations on our judgment, behaviors, and decisions. So our biases deceives us by labeling others as biased while tricking ourselves into believing that we are impartial and objective. So such denial weakens our ability to discern truth, making it difficult for us to approach political perspectives that challenge our own, right? So once we find something that challenges ourselves, we kind of move away from it and we choose areas that are like us. So we don't challenge ourselves, we just place ourselves where it just feels more like us. Okay, so the good news is that it's just like driving. Looking at our situation from a new vantage point can quickly eliminate the blind spots. However, this requires proactive behavior and change in our part. So, a good first step to take is to ask others, especially those who sit across the aisles, that we might be missing in our understanding of their perspective by listening and asking follow up questions. So, we can all become more enlightened and educated and empathetic, making it easier to recognize our blind spots for what they really are. So, meaning don't dismiss other people because they're not like you. Just look for those areas where you can, those blind spots that you can have the same understanding and really understand that person and be educated about them and why they sit away from you. Maybe you weren't empathetic enough. Maybe you just brought a vibe of not wanting to communicate with them, so they sat in another area. You know, maybe your outer shell looked like you just didn't want to be approach, so they went someplace else. So what the Lord is just saying is just look at how we are and then allow ourselves to ask others the questions before making judgment or assumptions. So today's reflection is make a list of all your biases that you have accepted as objective truth. So, and who are some people you can talk to that may offer a new vantage point? Who are some people that you want to talk to that may offer you a better understanding of your ways and how you are and how you come off, right? And make a list of things that you have accepted as true to you. Like maybe you have a bad attitude. Maybe you don't listen. Maybe you're so fast to anger. Maybe you're so fast to judge. Those are your objective truths about yourself. But look at those things and then try to talk to people that are opposite of you and allow them to bring truth to what they see from an outer standpoint. Okay, so in this devotion, um it connected with these scriptures. So Ephesians 4:14 says, then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about in every wind of new teachings. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like truth. Instead, we speak with the truth in love, growing in every way more like Christ, who is in who is the head of his body and the church. Okay, so he makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. It helps other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. So Colossians 4:6 says, let your conversations be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. And Romans 12:2 says, don't copy the behavior of the customs of the world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. And we went through those scriptures before, so it is nice to see it over and over again. So in the book in the book in the book of Luke, Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan in response to a lawyer who was looking for a loophole in his definition of a neighbor. So in that story, the Samaritan, an avowed enemy of hurting Judean, dropped everything he was doing and gave his own time and money to prioritize a man who was, in every sense of word, his moral enemy. So our hero was particularly controversial to those in Jesus' audience because Jews and Samaritans hated each other for centuries. So their en- enmity stemmed from political and religious division among the tribes of Jacob and evolved into national and racial differences later. So the Good Samaritan broke every social norm. So he didn't allow any excuses to prevent him from helping someone who was hurting, despite their differences. So he could have easily crossed the street like the others, but instead of turning his back, the Samaritan nursed the Judean back to life and bridged their division with love. So he helped no matter what. He didn't turn their back on anybody who needed it, but he allowed love to interfere and he assisted and helped, right? At the end of the story, Jesus instructs the lawyer to go and do likewise. In Luke 10:37, you can read a little bit more about that. Um, so, you can look into that. Finesse toxic. Good isn't real. I don't know what you mean by that. It just depends how you see it, but you need to kind of um you need to add on to that. I don't understand that comment very well. So while we may not stumble across a mug Judean, we constantly cross paths with people we consider our enemies who are in emotional, financial, physical, and spiritual pain. So by intending to their pain like the Samaritan did, we can help bridge our division with love, tenderness, and care. And what the Lord is saying is that we can always assist with love, be tender, and have care for other people. So reflection for this devotion is: what steps can you take today to love somebody whose political ideologies are vastly different from yours? If you guys see differences, how can you love them for who they are, even though they're different from you? I don't like these types of comments, like when people come into my life, they provide a comment and then disappear. Um, it's just really hard to talk about. So Luke 10:25 says, one day an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus replied, what does the law of Moses say? How do you read it? The man answered, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as well. So Jesus said, right, do this and you will live. So the man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus and Jesus, and who is my neighbor? So Jesus replied with a story. So Jesus told this gentleman, this lawyer, a Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil, wine, and bandaged them. Then he put the man in his own donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay the next time I'm here. Now, which of these three would you have said was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Jesus asked the man, the one who showed him mercy. Then Jesus said, yes, now go on and do the same. So what the Lord is saying is just help others. Don't just bypass them. Show some care and compassion for others. Okay? As you would do as you would do if it was somebody that you had known. All right. It's 19 minutes. I love the devotion that we talked about today. It's all about just loving and being caring and just opening your eyes to seeing how people really are and not placing judgment on somebody or assumption before even knowing them as a person or as a human being. Treat others with respect and be honest and truthful to yourself before you can be honest and truthful to others. And speak of the truth is basically what is being told, what is being said, right? If we continue to lie and not be truthful, then we'll continue to live in lies and be untruthful. Okay. With that being said, you guys have a blessed one. Ahui ho.